Okay, I fixed it, Judge. It's allowing me to do it.
There you go. Meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Your Honor, we also have the assigned probation officer present, Mr. Gary.
Mr. Carnes,
Yes, yes, Your
All right.
Honor.
Afternoon.
very good. Is Kayleen with us? Yes, I see her.
Yes, sir.
All right. Once again, is Mr. Trevino on board? All right. Then again, the court will come to order. It is 1:39 p.m., March 23rd, 2021. We call case number 635661. This is a motion by the defense counsel or defendant or probationer, whichever title we can use. The motion is to amend conditions of bond. State's ready, defense is ready. Ms. Cruz, it's your
Your Honor, It's-
motion.
Your Honor, it's to
Oh,
amend conditions of probation.
I'm sorry. Did I say bond again? I'm stuck
Yeah.
on that. All right, motion to amend conditions of probation. Now, preliminary. Our interpreter is Maria Rivas. Ms. Rivas, would you please raise your right hand? You solemnly swear that in this proceeding, you will correctly and a true and correct translation do from English to Spanish and Spanish to English, so help you God. Thank you, ma'am. The interpreter being sworn, now I address myself to Mr. Trevino. Mr. Trevino, there are several things that I have to cover with you as preliminary matters. Number one, in any criminal proceeding of whatever sort, you always have a right to remain silent. I realize this is your motion. I presume, Ms. Cruz, that you're going to have him testify, if at all?
If necessary, Your Honor, it's a simple request that we have.
I understand. But if he testifies, I need to be sure that he knows and understands that he has the right to remain silent. Mr. Trevino, if your attorney calls you to testify, you have a right to remain silent. That means you do not have to make any statement. You don't have to answer questions unless you waive that right. Do you understand that? Do you have a response, Ms. Rivas? Okay, well, it shows that he is muted right now. Ms. Cruz?
¿Ahora sí me escucha?
Mr. Trevino, did you hear what I said about the right to remain silent?
Sí.
All right. And are you willing to give up that right if your attorney calls you to testify? Do you understand that you would be giving up the right to remain silent?
Sí.
In addition, you have a right to have this motion, this proceeding heard in the public courtroom. But because of the COVID pandemic, we're not having this hearing in the public courtroom. We're doing it by video conference, and that is being done or shown to the public on YouTube. Do you understand that you're waiving the right to have this, or you're consenting to have this hearing done on video conference YouTube?
Sí.
And at the same time, Mr. Edelman, on behalf of the state, you have that same right. Are you consenting to do this hearing by video conference on YouTube?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Sí.
Ms. Cruz, it is your motion. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. This offense occurred originally March 16th of 2020. It was originally categorized as a DWI second, although the plea was for a reduced of DWI Class B. The original DWI had occurred more than 16 years ago, Your Honor. And it has been quite a bit of time that's between the two offenses. He has been on the ignition interlock device since the date of the offense, which makes it exactly a full year with no violations on the device. And we took a probation, we took a plea in this court, and he has been on the device since then, which was, I believe, January 27th. He has had no violations. He's been compliant with everything that he needed to do. We have a petition for occupational driver's license on file that we are seeking to get an order on. So he's doing everything he needs to do. And we are simply asking that the conditions of intensive outpatient and Alcoholics Anonymous that were added on as the TAP evaluation was conducted to be held in abeyance, Your Honor. My client, as he testified at the time of the plea, had lost his job in the management position and has had to take a server job at a Las Palapas restaurant. He is making minimum wage and he does pay child support. So he is making as many hours as he possibly can, all the while upkeeping with the cost of ignition interlock and whatever other cost that he has to do. So it is not in a simple defiance that he doesn't want to do these conditions, the IOP and the Alcoholics Anonymous. It is a simple situation that it's a bit extensive considering the totality of the circumstances and the fact that time for him is an issue because he does need to rack up as many hours. He makes minimum wage $2.15 an hour. So it's one of those situations where he has to work 50, 60 hours if he's gonna make a living. That's really the basis of our request, Your Honor, is simply that he be given the opportunity to hold these conditions in abeyance. And if he messes up at that point, IOP is just mandatory. But that's simply all we have.
Mr. Edelman.
State would like to call Supervision Officer Carnes to testify.
Mr. Carnes, raise your right hand, please. Mr. Carnes, do you solemnly swear that in this proceeding, the information and responses you submit will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You may put your hand up. Your witness, Mr. Edelman.
Officer Carnes, did you personally give the TAP evaluation?
I did not personally give it. It's conducted by one of our assessors here with the county.
Do you know who the assessor was?
I can look that up, sir. If you'll give me 1 second. That would be Miss Lydia San Miguel.
And what was Ms. San Miguel's justification for requesting the recommendations that she made?
As I'm reading through her notes here, I mean, basically, it's his past use and the fact that he had a prior DWI. And granted, I know it was a few years ago, but now he has a subsequent DWI.
Now, have you had an opportunity to speak personally with Mr. Trevino?
Yes, I actually met with Mr. Trevino initially for his initial interview. And I understand there was some language barriers on my part, but I feel like I was able to clearly explain the expectations by the court to Mr. Trevino. And he acknowledged that he did understand what I was relaying to him as far as, you know, the conditions that have to be met by the court.
Now, the defense counsel stated that there is a petition for an occupational license on file. Is that to imply that Mr. Trevino currently does not have a valid license to operate a motor vehicle?
To my knowledge, that is correct. I have no evidence of him having an actual valid Texas driver's license or an occupational driver's license on my end. I see nothing like that scanned into the system at this point.
Has Mr. Trevino been operating a motor vehicle?
My answer to that is I downloaded the most recent alcohol monitoring reports, and there are indications based on photos and the frequency and times that the samples are being submitted that he is driving.
And could you expand on that for the court, please?
Well, when I pull up the reports for the month, I noticed that most of the samples being submitted are more in the afternoons and the evenings, which correlates to the times that he is working. I also am able to pull up certain photos which show the defendant in full view in the camera, but with his seatbelt on. As well, we have something that's called rolling retest submissions that indicate that he is driving when he's submitting those samples.
Now, if Mr. Trevino is operating a motor vehicle without a valid license, would that constitute a violation of the conditions of his supervision?
Yes, it would. It would be condition number 13.
And
Which basically
during,
states, go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, please finish your thought.
I don't have the condition up in front of me, but basically it states that he is not to operate any vehicle without a valid Texas driver's license.
Would it also be a violation of condition number 1? To not commit any offenses against the laws of the state of
That is
Texas or the
correct.
United States?
Yes, sir, that is a correct statement.
Are there any other violations of Mr. Trevino's supervision that you have detected so far, other than the ones already detailed for the court?
Right, the only other concern was I did instruct him to submit to a urinalysis when we first met, and he has failed to submit to a UA as of today.
Now, was there a justification for that failure given to you by Mr. Trevino?
Actually, I've not been able to get a response from him on that.
Now, is this because you have not been able to contact him, or because you have contacted him and he's not responding?
Right, when I discovered it, basically, which to be honest with you, when I was preparing the court summary today, is when I pulled up the UA results and noticed that today that he had not submitted as instructed last month.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Carnes, has Mr. Trevino did Mr. Trevino request from the onset of his position with you a Spanish-speaking officer?
I do recall that his conversation with me was that he preferred a Spanish-speaking officer, ma'am, and that is correct. And I did tell him that we were in the process of trying to assign our Spanish-speaking officers to Spanish-speaking, our Spanish-speaking defendants to Spanish-speaking officers. So there was a conversation around that, yes, ma'am.
And what was the product of your attempts to assign him to a Spanish-speaking officer?
We're in the process of, we do not have a Spanish-speaking officer presently in our unit, but we are working on that, so.
Did Mr. Trevino, in fact, tell you that he had a petition for an occupational driver's license pending since before he took his plea bargain?
He did tell me that he was in the process of getting with you on that to obtain the occupational.
Has Mr. Trevino actually blown a high brack or failed with
I have not noticed any violations as far as any kind of high brack violations or alcohol related violations submitted.
Has he missed any testing windows?
Well, when you say windows, there's no windows assigned. However, I did ask him to blow once in the morning and once in the evening, and I've noticed no samples submitted in the mornings at all.
Okay. Are you aware of Mr. Trevino's work schedule?
Actually, I'm not.
Okay. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Carnes, I have a question. You said there's no Spanish speakers in your unit. How many people
No.
are in that unit?
Yes, sir. There are Spanish-speaking officers in the unit here on the northeast side, but in my specific unit, actual DWI officers, we don't have one as of yet, but we're working on that.
How many are there in that specific unit you're talking about?
In the unit that we're in right now, we have, let's see, I believe 8 officers.
8 officers, 0
Yes, sir.
speak Spanish.
Yes, sir. I know it's a challenge. We had an officer that was with us, and then that officer is no longer with us. So we are actively working on that. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, I have a SID number and you want
Mr. Edelman, anything else?
A few more questions. Officer Carnes, would you briefly explain the conditions of the DWI intervention and the victim impact panel live? If
I'm
you
sorry,
can.
can you repeat that question?
Can you briefly explain the conditions of the, before I continue, I'm going to wait for defense counsel to return.
Apologies, Your Honor. He had the other device on. I turned it off.
Okay, if I don't think I clearly understand what you're asking, sir. I mean, those are two of the conditions that he's required to complete. Are you asking me to give you a detailed explanation of each one of the courses, or?
Yes, sir. What do they involve?
Well, the DWI intervention classes involved an in-depth look at the dangers of drinking and driving. The classes, the instructors also go over, addressing critical thinking errors and why defendants make the decisions they do. Coping skills are addressed. In the live victim impact panel class, that's where an actual victim is present during the course of the class, so they can share their experiences of being affected by a drunk driver and the impact it's made in their lives.
Now, would you please explain to the court the details of the substance abuse outpatient treatment program?
Right, there's 2 different types. There's the supportive outpatient and intensive outpatient. The supportive outpatient basically runs for 4 weeks. The intensive outpatient runs for 8 weeks. And again, basically they're addressing substance abuse issues, critical thinking era, how to deal with developing coping skills and how to make better decisions in the future. There's many things that they go over that are very effective and useful in the courses.
Does the substance abuse outpatient treatment program teach different skills from the DWI intervention?
Most definitely, most definitely.
And could you please explain what those differences are?
Okay, I will address that I'm not adept at all that because I've never really actually taught one of the courses or classes. I just basically know the highlights of the courses or classes based on what I just shared with you previously.
Well, then, would you please explain to the best of your knowledge what the differences are, if you can?
Okay, so you're going to have to rephrase your question, sir.
Can you explain to the court what are the differences between the substance abuse outpatient treatment program and the DWI intervention program?
I personally believe that the supportive outpatient treatment as compared to the DWI intervention is more detailed or more interactive. They actually meet together as a group to share common experiences. They address with the group things that come up in their lives, stresses that can cause them to want to use drugs or to use alcohol. They talk about a lot of areas, and how to deal with those temptations, and again, coping skills to handle that. In addition, what's recommended is AA or NA attendance along with the supportive outpatient treatment, which is shown to be effective in helping them to deal with their desires to drink or use.
Pass the witness.
Questions, Your
Hear you, Mr. Ms. Cruz, if you're speaking, I don't hear you. You appear to be muted.
¿Le puede poner mute a su?
Ms. Cruz, you are muted, I think.
Yes, there's back from.
No.
Apologies, Your Honor. That's all we have. It's a simple request. He does have to enroll in the DWI education and VIP Live. My office has provided him with a Spanish speaking resource that does those classes in Spanish. He has enrolled, and all we ask, Your Honor, is that he be given the opportunity to complete the probation with the original conditions, which do include the intervention program, the victim impact live program, the community service hours. And he just began his probation. He's been on alcohol monitoring device for an extended period of time. And all we're asking for is that he be given the opportunity for these additional conditions, which would put a stress on his ability to maintain his living, Your Honor, and that of the child that he supports. It's a simple request, and that's all we have. Oh, one more thing, Your Honor, I apologize. I have forwarded to the court the occupational driver's license packet that includes both the SR-22, the insurance, and the petition that has been on file since September of 2020. The delay in getting that occupational granted was not my client's fault. I have been trying to get a hearing with the county courts for quite some time. They're having very limited dockets, and it's been nearly impossible to get on that docket. That is the discrepancy in the driver's license, but that is not entirely my client's fault. And I, as an officer of the court, I can verify that we have been trying to get that order signed since September of 2020.
Ms. Cruz, I'm ordering you to get that over to my office. This, your request for the occupational license. I'll get it signed or stamp signed, whichever. We'll get it signed right away.
Thank you, Your
Now,
Honor.
it bothers me that he's obviously been driving. I'm not going to ask him that. I don't want to put him in a position where he might be tempted to lie to me under oath, which would be a critical error. What is he making? I know you're saying he gets $2.13 an hour. That's a standard pay for servers. But what is he actually earning? What is he taking home on a monthly basis? Do you know?
I do not, Your Honor. I believe he testified to that during the plea hearing.
May I add, Your Honor, that according to Mr. Carnes, Mr. Trevino has still not provided proof of income or employment.
I want him, Ms. Cruz, I want him to provide some form of proof, whether it's by his employers or whatever. I want him to provide that proof of income. And I'm including not just the $2.13 an hour, because that is not his income. That's the documented income. Get that over to the probation office. Is that understood?
Yes, Your Honor, understood.
And Your Honor, I need to amend my previous statement. Mr. Trevino has provided proof of employment What Mr. Carnes indicated to me was that he has not provided proof of income and residency, and that was my mistake.
Get him to comply with that right away, Ms. Cruz.
Yes, Your Honor, my client doesn't have status.
All right. I can see there's a significant difficulty. I don't want to set him up for a disaster or a violation. He's already perilously close to that. And obviously, I want you to make very clear to him that I'm going to put him on zero tolerance. I'm going to hold in abeyance the recommendations that were talked about, but he's going to be on zero tolerance. If Mr. Carnes or anyone else in that office, hopefully they find somebody that can communicate with him completely in Spanish. I'm a little bit upset that they don't have 1 out of 8 that has that capability. But if any one of them says frog, I expect Mr. Trevino to start hopping. If he fails to go to take a test when he's ordered to, there's not going to be any excuse. And as soon as I get if I get another violation report, he will rue the day if the evidence shows it. We understand each other?
Yes, Your Honor. While I have Mr. Carnes here, I would like to get his email. Maybe if he could send me a copy of the updated probation conditions, I can facilitate while he gets another officer. I don't think my client was aware of that, of the morning blows or the UAs, to be honest.
I want you to make very clear to him that I expect 100% participation by him. I've already heard some issues that indicate at least 2 violations, that he's driving right now without a valid license, and that he's failed or refused, which is worse, failed or refused to submit to the test when he's ordered to do so. Now, I am ordering him today to go and submit a UA. Is that understood?
Yes, Your
All
Honor.
right. So that's where we're at for today. Anything else, Mr. Edelman?
Only that I disagree with the court's decision because a TAP evaluation and following recommendations was among the conditions that Mr. Trevino agreed to when he took his plea.
Fully aware of that, Mr. Edelman. Anything else?
Nothing aside from that, sir.
We have on other occasions waived or placed on abeyance the recommendations on TAP. It's not that unusual. I don't want to set up this man for immediate failure. And I think we will if we push him that hard. Now, anything else, Mr. Edelman?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Cruz?
Nothing further, Your Honor. We thank you for your time.
All right. Where was Mr. Carnes at? It appears